recorded, which I didn't know, so I hope I will look fine, but anyway, that's why I'm using a microphone. So if it's too loud, please tell me. If it's too quiet, also please tell me. So the objective of this afternoon is to help you maybe a little bit with making sure that your presentation in a conference is well understood. Because the worst thing that could happen is that you are presenting a paper and nobody is asking a question and you will not having any feedback. So that's a missed opportunity, I would say. So therefore, for me, it is really important that you try to make sure that everybody in the room is understanding what your research is all about, which means that you will have to explain it in a very simple way. And I will give you some practical advices on how you can do that. I'm sure that you can make your presentation very difficult, that nobody understands, and that you may have, a good feeling that you are telling something to the audience that the others don't understand, but that's not the objective of science. The objective of science is making sure that we understand each other, that we are sharing our knowledge, and that we are bringing the knowledge to the next level. All right. So, what I'm doing when I'm presenting a paper, all right, I usually, and you all do that, is that you are presenting, of course, the title. But keep in mind that this is giving you like a few seconds to feel comfortable. So make sure that you start with your title. And as I mentioned here, it's about learning approaches, it's about academic performance, and also motivation and time spent. And me, I'm Patricia Everaert, and my co-author is Evelien Opdekam and also Sophie Moos. This is not so important that everybody understands, but it's giving you a time for warming up, you know, because they will talk. You are very quiet, so you were listening immediately to me, which is great. But in a normal conference, people are, and then you have to catch them. Then it's your point to catch them. Okay, I'm going to catch you, so you were talking. Assume that you were talking. Do as if, so talk with your neighbor. Okay, you're talking, okay. All right, so this paper is about my daughter. Here is my daughter. My daughter, she is studying. And I am telling her, well, you should study harder. And she's saying, well, I'm already studying a lot of time. And I'm saying then, well, but how are you studying? And she's saying, well, I'm simply studying. And what is my husband saying then? My husband is saying then, she's not motivated to study. So this study here that I'm going to present, it's about learning approaches, how students are learning, and it's about also motivation, and we will also take into consideration the time spent. So you see, I got you. I got you all immediately by simply like a little story or something. Why is this study important? So that is really important. Why is this study important? It could be something about your own experience, but that everybody in the room is saying, okay, interesting. It's about learning approaches. Yes, how should that person study? She's studying already a lot of time. So there are in the literature different learning approaches, and I will explain you two here. Like my daughter, well, she is like trying to reproduce the material. She's focusing on, let's say, isolated, unlinked facts. It is mainly the focus on memorizing, learning by heart. And it's, I'm studying because I just want to pass the exam. I will do as sufficient, as needed, but nothing more than that. This is called in the literature the surface learning approach. On the other hand, we have the deep learning approach, and the deep learning approach, it's about me as a student, I really want to understand the material. I really want that long-term retention. I want to remember in the long term. It is linking new knowledge with previous knowledge. It is really wanting to understand the material. And students who are learning in a deep, who are having a deep learning approach, they are studying in depth. So this is what this paper is all about. It's about the surface learning approach and the deep learning approach. So this is like an introduction, and you can see here on the top, I will focus on introduction, literature, method, and results. Now we are still in the introduction. I have to admit that when I was looking at the sheets and at the slides, they were prepared a few years ago, and I thought, if I would probably not do it in that way, because the drawings, they are not that attractive anymore. They are maybe explaining what it is all about, but if I had to do it in a new presentation, I would probably try to find a nicer picture instead of the drawings. But anyway, it's the message that it is all about today. All right, now now we are going to the research questions, which is for me really important, that you're telling your audience what is the research question all about. Here, in this paper, it's about, can we influence the learning approach of students? Is high motivation of students, is that leading to deep learning? That's the first research question. Second research question is, well, why would we like to know that? So does the learning approach matter? Is deep learning, is that leading to higher grades, which I call here in this paper performance, higher performance? Is deep learning also leading to more time spent? More time spent at studying at home, right? And if we are taking the deep learning approach into account, is this only because the students are studying more at home? Or is it something else? Is there something in addition? So is the impact of deep learning simply because of the more time spent, or is something else going on? So these are like basically the 3 or 4 main research questions. Then it's interesting that you are going to a model. I don't know if you have in your own research like a model. It's always interesting to mention that. We are basing here this paper on a model. It's the BIGS3P model, which says that, okay, students are coming in, that is the pre-stage, then we have the learning process, and then we have the learning outcomes. Here in this paper, it's about the learning outcomes, the performance. How are students doing on their exam? Then, what else here? Well, we know that gender is having an influence on outcome as well as ability. Ability is like the general, let's say, the general intelligence, the ability of the individual students. How students are coming in with a certain ability here at the university. Learning approach, well, that is something that is formulated or arriving, let's say, during the learning process. We have here the deep and the surface learning, and then motivation is also something that we are interested in. As mentioned, time spent is also here, so this is like the model that we want to test. So the impact of motivation on the learning approach, we have deep learning, surface learning. We will look at the end result, performance, and we will investigate whether the students are spending a lot of time at home. Motivation, as you will see, we will make a difference between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Okay, I'm stopping here. Why is this important to give a visual representation? It's more difficult for me because if this was in words, like my whole sheet with all the words saying what are the things that I want to say, for a non-native speaker, it's always easier because then you are reading, okay, that's what I need to say. But for a presentation, it is really important not to have a lot of words on your sheets. Only the highlights, only the main variables. Okay, I will do that the same for the next sheet when we are trying to elaborate hypothesis. So that's the next one. The next thing is we are going to see what's in the literature. And as you see here, I'm stressing that there is a difference between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Always interesting to put in brackets like previous literature. That's always interesting. And then formulating your hypothesis, highlighting the most important things here, right? So here in this paper, it's about the high intrinsic motivation. So we are assuming that high intrinsic motivation is resulting in a deep learning approach, and that the extrinsic motivation, so I'm motivated mainly by I want to do my best to have a good grade, well, that this results in only a surface approach. I will do only what necessary and nothing more than that, trying to memorize by heart, and that's it. I will get a 10, and hopefully that's the last time that I need to study accounting, for instance. The last time in my life. Okay, so we are going now to the different other hypotheses. I'm going to skip that because this is not about a paper presentation. So this is about a presentation on how to present a presentation or to give a presentation in a conference. So here it's the deep learning approach and then the surface learning approach, the impact on performance. Then we have the learning approach to the time spent, all the variables, okay, deep learning, surface learning, and then learning approach to performance while controlling for the time spent. Okay, so what do I need here right now as an audience? All those variables, what is this all about? You need like a simple recap. So again, I'm going to present everything in one model. All the variables in one model, which is giving you the opportunity to repeat it, but also for the audience. I'm lost in the hypothesis. And that's always a part where I am lost in an audience. Because in the hypothesis, the presenter, they try to formulate a little bit of the reasoning, but it's too short in a presentation, so you're a bit lost then. All the variables are coming, all the relationships are coming, and then I'm done. Okay, I will look to my mobile phone to see if there is an email coming in. No, no, no. You have to catch them back. And here you're catching them back because you're giving again the whole picture. And for yourself, that is really easy because you can use that picture at the end of your presentation, saying, okay, this line is, or this hypothesis is supported, this hypothesis is not supported. What is difficult here in this particular situation that we have like a path model, and okay, this one here, that was a little bit straightforward, surface learning to performance, deep learning to performance, deep to time spent, surface to time spent, but then the additional effect, let's say, the additional impact of deep approach, the deep learning approach to the performance. So here, in one nutshell, the main variables, and of course I do have control variables everywhere for gender and for ability. Okay, then you have to tell something about the research methodology. You see, I'm here. Number 3, the methodology. This paper here was about the first undergraduate course in a main university, in the most favorite university, or the most famous university in Belgium, of course. It was a course, a first undergraduate course, a second semester course. The course is called Advanced Accounting. And you can see here the timeline of the 12 weeks. And then in June, we are having the exam. That is the grade. So we are using here performance, the grade of the students, only at the final exam. We are measuring motivation of the students in week 2. and we are measuring the learning approach in week 12 as well as the time spent. So it's a self-reported measure. We ask the students on average how much time have you spent on accounting in the last 12 weeks. So that's a little bit the story behind. So it's a survey. We are basing our data on motivation, learning approach, and time spent on the surveys. And for the performance data, we are getting the records from the university. For the ability measure, well, for the ability measure, we are taking the grade of the students for the first semester accounting course, which is called Accounting A. So again, a very visual representation, the data set. This was a data set of 246, and then, which is also interesting, it's like the variables. So how everything is measured. For instance, here, my gender, that is like a 0, it's a dummy variable, 0 for male and 1 for female. For motivation, I'm using the MSLQ. For the deep learning, I'm using the measure of big set alias, and so on. So also like in a very broad way, very shortly, short words, let's say, generally to give one overview. Now we have the descriptives. Okay, and what is interesting? Well, it's always interesting to have the numbers, the n. In a quantitative paper, that's something that I'm always looking for, the n. Then, of course, the mean, the minimum and the maximum, and the standard deviation. But I think you are very familiar with that, right? Again, a lot of figures. Where do I want to give the attention to? Well, to the story that I want to tell. And if I'm a bit nervous, like on a presentation, which one should I mention now? I don't know anymore. Okay, well, help yourself. Okay, this is what I want to focus on. Okay, we have here a mean of deep approach of 2.8, which is higher than the surface approach. Okay, very well, which is very good. So the students are doing better in terms of the deep approach than in terms of the surface approach. What else do I present here? It's simply a representation, because that was a comment that we received on this paper very often. Of course, it's like you are high on the one hand and you are low on the other hand. Well, this is simply to show that it is not the case. This is simply to show that we have surface approach. Students are doing high on a surface approach, they are situated here. If they are doing low on the deep learning, but there are students here that are doing high on the deep learning approach and low on the surface approach. So that is like the two main, the most expected quadrants. But we have here like a rather high group of students which are doing low on the deep learning approach, but also low on the surface approach. So this one are the deep learners, that is clear. They are high on the deep learning approach. This ones, they are doing high on the surface, so surface learning approach. Almost no students over there, but here, these are the students who are rote learners. So they are not learning very deeply, but on the other hand, they are not learning surface, in a surface approach as well. So it's not that they are like, okay, nothing interesting, and then memorizing a little bit of that. No, they are like not doing that. So they are studying a lot basically, but they are like studying in the wrong way. That's what we call here in this paper the rote learners, mainly learning by heart. If I have a time limit in my presentation, I would probably skip this one, because it's spending or it's asking me a lot of time. Okay, then let's have a look at differences, the differences in gender, because gender was a control variable. We see here that the male students are doing, in terms of the surface approach, higher. They have a more surface approach than the female students. The time spent, they are spending less time. These are minutes per week than the female students. And what else that we see is we are doing an ANCOVA, so we are controlling for ability and controlling for gender, that the male students are doing lower than the female students, and that was significant as well in terms of academic performance. So gender is a very important variable here, so we definitely need to include that in our future analysis. Okay, and now I'm going to present all the regression results. Again, I will not do it because I want you to reflect on that. I want to give you also the opportunity to react, but basically I'm presenting here the, let's say, what is it here? It's an regression result, and you can see that intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation is linked to the deep approach. And if we are looking at the surface approach, you also see that intrinsic motivation is linked to that, and not extrinsic motivation as expected. So that's already an interesting result. Then we go to hypothesis 2, performance. The deep approach is leading to performance. The surface approach is negatively leading to performance. I'm simply skipping that. The time spent, it is the deep approach that will motivate students to spend more on studying, all right, and the surface approach is negative impact on the time spent. Thus this is all what we expected. And then the most interesting result is when we are combining things, when we are combining the time spent and the deep approach, there we see that still after controlling for the impact of time spent, still we see that the way students are studying, that this is still having a significant impact on the academic performance. So it is more than simply studying more. When we look at the surface approach, well, over there, the surface approach is having not having in addition a negative impact. So there it is mainly explained by the time spent. And then this is needed, because then you need to recap everything. You need to combine the things. Intrinsic motivation is here in this particular paper having an impact on the deep approach, and that hypothesis was supported. Intrinsic motivation to the surface approach was not supported. Extrinsic motivation, however, not as expected, is having an impact on the deep approach, and the negative impact of intrinsic motivation was supported on the surface approach. Both approaches are having an impact on performance. As expected, the deep approach positively influences performance. Studying in a surface way, well, this is having a negative impact on performance. And as expected, the time spent was supported as well. And then the most interesting thing is that we still have an impact of, let's say here, the deep approach on the performance while we are taking into account the time spent. However, this one here, hypothesis 2b, was not supported. So therefore, it is put away. Okay, do I stop here? Conclusions? No? What else do I need to tell? What else is interesting to say? Okay, I'm done. No, I'm not done, because I simply want to remind the limitation, and I simply want to focus again on what is the main message of the study. We see over here in this study that our Cronbach's alpha was rather low for motivation. We have a rather low number of observations, only 250, and these are self-reported measures. So the students, they reported themselves in terms of the time spent, for instance, and also in terms of the learning approach. However, learning approaches is always measured as a self-reported measure in the literature. Maybe for future research, it would be interesting to say, okay, the road learners, that specific group, which was attracting our attention, they are low on deep learning, and they are also low on surface learning. So what is going on with those students? A very interesting group, the road learners. Can we stimulate those students to go to more deep learning? Because at that time, we hope that their performance would go up. Okay, and I will end the presentation again, going back. What is the main contribution? You should study differently. That's what I need to tell to my daughter, not studying more, but studying differently. Time spent is important, but it is not the main issue, and there is still an impact of the deep approach on performance, even when taking time spent into account. So I will leave my presentation here, and then I will go back to the takeaways. Usually you may end here with thank you, and then thank you for your feedback, and then like, okay, your name, which is interesting. But if you want feedback on one particular thing, it is important that you end with that slide. For instance, if I want, here in this paper, if I want feedback on like my model, I would give my model here in addition. So I would probably end with my model again in my presentation. Never end with this one. Never end with this one. Limitations. Never end with limitations. Because then everybody is in the limitation mode. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What about this? What about that? That's not the type of feedback that you want. Because your study is done now. Maybe you want ideas on future research, or maybe you want to focus on this one here. Okay, what would be interesting here? Why is that not supported? Okay, maybe that's something that you want to, that you want some feedback on. So let's say sit down before your presentation and say to yourself, okay, where do I want to have feedback on? And then use that definitely as the last slide, because your last slide will be there when there is questions from the audience. So never ending with limitations, no way. Or the main message, that could be okay. The main contribution, all right, okay, that's fine. Maybe this one, but what is this going to tell me? What is this going to help me with having feedback? This paper is published already, so don't worry, I'm happy with it. But in the stage that you're going to a conference, it is mainly for having feedback. Okay? All right, what are the takeaways then for today? That is that you need to structure your presentation. Always start with an introduction. Catch them. Try to say, okay, what is my paper all about? Really important. Then do not forget to mention something about the literature. I know we only have 10 minutes sometimes for presentations, sometimes 20, sometimes 25. Literature review, should I mention? Yes, you definitely need to say something about it. Some names, because this is showing that you know what's going on already in the literature. It may be maybe not the most interesting part for your audience, but it is giving you, okay, a recognition, I would say. You know the literature. And if somebody is asking a nasty question, maybe that's one of the slides that you could go back to. But this has been found in the literature by this and this and this person. It is not the easiest way to present. I have to admit that, because it's more, this one is saying that, this one is saying that, and therefore we are having this hypothesis. But it should definitely be in there. Methodology, that's also really important. Make sure that the audience understand what this is all about. Is it a survey? Is it an experiment? Is it something, I don't know what, database research? Make sure that the audience is understanding what you're doing. Is it a simple case study? Okay, then say simple case study. And maybe for you it is really clear, but if you have to tell that to somebody who doesn't know anything about your study, maybe try this. Try this to tell to a colleague. Usually your colleague is going to say, okay, but this is database research. Yes, of course this is database research. But this is a survey. Yes, of course this is a survey. But these are like the things that you really need to mention, like the very elementary things, because for you it's not elementary anymore. You were used to it. And also your let's say your colleague, where you are sharing the office with, they know about it. But somebody from another department, from another level here in the building, that's maybe interesting. Then for me, it's always interesting to have something on the measurement of the variables. Because what in my mind, performance, time spent, deep learning, and so on, it is something that you have to tell them. And what I did not present here right now is very detailed, but keep that in your backpack, let's say. So something that I definitely like at the end of my presentation, something that is like more sheets. I always have more sheets, you know, always have more sheets. For instance, this one. What about the factor loadings? What about the Cronbach's alpha? Yes, of course, I have it here. Okay, these are the items. These are here the items. What is this one? So this is about, in a class, it is intrinsic goal orientation and extrinsic goal orientation. These are the two variables that we used for measuring intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. You can add this to your presentation, but then your presentation is becoming longer. So it's a trade-off. And maybe if you are quickly showing, I don't know what would be the added value. But if somebody is asking, intrinsic motivation, how have you measured that? What about the items? Okay, it's over here. So that's something that you keep behind. Also, what else are we keeping behind? For instance, the correlation table. That's something that is sometimes you are not able to present it. So then you keep the main variables. Correlation table, for me, that's also very important. If it's a quantitative study, the correlation table, because somebody could ask, what about this and that? Okay, we're having a look at the correlation table, and then this is like stimulating people. Okay, what about this? What about that? Okay, I see here, this is significant. Interesting. In my study, it was this and that. So this is also giving some additional food for, let's say, the discussion. So the main points: introduction, literature, methodology, measurement of the variables to me, and then the results, of course. Okay. And then once more, I think I stressed that already, the 3 key elements in an introduction. So the catchy thing, what is your research all about? Why is this a relevant question? And how are you answering this question? Maybe I did not stress the last one too much. I mainly focused on the 3 key elements. All right, discussion with your neighbor. What are the things that you learned, or what are the things that you are doing in the beginning of a presentation? Maybe share some ideas with your neighbors and then share it probably with your colleagues. I will give you a few minutes. So. point. I've heard many interesting points, Maybe the last one, I will start with that one. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah.
So assume that
I am presenting in a conference and I get a feedback, and then I had an opportunity to present in another session. And do I need to incorporate that feedback in that session as well, or I should let it as it is and wait for another question, another query for that to answer?
Yeah, so basically it's about, okay, you presented a paper and you received a lot of feedback. One thing you definitely need to do is, again, after your presentation, sit down and write immediately down all the questions, just to make sure that you remember that. If you are not alone in a conference, you can ask your colleague, taking notes, like, what are the questions? Question 1, tuck, 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 you answered it, tuck, 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 tuck. Question 2, tuck, 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 answer, tuck, tuck. One tip of networking is, if I am in a presentation and I see that the author is alone, is like not having any colleagues, I am taking notes for him or for her. So I'm writing down in my nicest handwriting the questions, the answers, the questions, the answers. Tip of networking, I'm writing down my name on it, and at the end of the presentation, at the end of the session, I'm giving that paper, that piece of paper to the presenter, and I'm saying, okay, I saw that you were alone. I know that it is really hard to capture all the questions when you are presenting. Here, I've written it down for you. Here you are. You can do whatever you want with it. Oh, thank you, Everaert. Are you going to the conference dinner? Yes, I'm going to the conference. Well, I will meet you there, you know? So it's already a start of the talk in the next session, and it's like, it's for free. And you help that person, and if you are in that position, you would also like that one, right? So that is a really easy thing to do. Okay, you're receiving feedback. Okay, what are you going to do with that? If it is valid feedback, you definitely have to change, because otherwise we are not improving. What is Bill Gates saying? Feedback, that's something that we all need. We all need feedback because that's how we improve. So definitely, good point. Yeah, that was, oh, maybe that was nothing clear. Yeah, maybe that's another limitation. Always integrate that, because that's how your paper is improving, always. We all know that in terms of publications, the best paper is the paper who was rejected most frequently, because every time I got feedback, every time I improved my papers. So that's also something you need to remember. If your paper is rejected and you got feedback, use that feedback. Next stage, it will become better. Absolutely. Do not forget about it. It's an opportunity. Take that opportunity. Is that an answer to your question, more or less? Okay, next question was about the timing, and it was the same question as there. Can you repeat that question?
Yes, that was about, we have a lot of stuff to be presented in a short time for the presentation. Sometimes we have 10 or 12 minutes, maybe. So it would be very tricky to select what information is necessary to be presented here. So we are talking about this.
Okay, so what are you doing then? You are simply talking faster, you're putting much more words on your slides, so you will have to tell the whole story. That's something we're not doing. So make sure that if you're having too much hypothesis, assume that you're explaining only hypothesis 1 and 2, because these are like the main things of your study. So make that selection up front. Also, the question was here about, why did you select a certain methodology? Why did you go for survey? Why did you go for an experimental research? Why database research? Yeah, that's something that you're explaining in the paper, but I would not explain that in my presentation. I would simply go for, okay, it's a survey, it's an experiment, and if somebody asks then later on, why an experiment? Okay, then you can explain that. So make sure that the things that you are giving are like needed to get the whole story. Yeah, definitely. Another thing that was not mentioned in my presentation at the end, what would be very useful, I've mentioned limitations. I've mentioned like the main conclusion, but what else could I have mentioned? Implications, implications for practice, implications for research. That's also something very nice to end. But is this really needed? If I want to have feedback on my model, then I will explain my model. If I want to have feedback to a very strange results, I remember once a paper, I got something about family firms, and that was like negative in terms of, I can't remember exactly, in terms of the trust in the accountant. And okay, that was something that was really strange to me. It was the opposite as I expected. Well, I spent really a lot of time in making sure that the audience is understanding how the family firms was measured, what was the role of the accountant in terms of advice to the family, just to help me. So it is difficult to keep in the time. I'm not a good time manager, as you may know, or as some of you may know. You have to practice. Yeah, you have to practice. Yeah, practice up front and do it for somebody who is familiar with you, not nasty to you, to give you honest feedback. Yeah, it's always easier to do it for somebody else than to do it for yourself. I don't know what about you. For me, it's always easier to tell somebody else, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. But for my own presentation, yes, I need it. Yes, I need it. Oh, interesting. Of course. Huh? Yeah. Okay, what else did we have? Other interesting questions? Marie-Julie? Mm-hmm.
So you have, of course, qualitative research, where you might use key quotes, or you have more conceptual ideas that you want to present, which will still be different because you don't have data collected.
Exactly. Much more difficult to present qualitative study, to get your message, but also spend some time on the methodology of your qualitative study in terms of how many people did you interview? How long were the interviews on average? How did you get to those people? Was it like a selection, or was it more like, okay, a convenient sample, let's say? Yeah? So the 3 Fs. Be honest on that, because that is also giving to the audience a little bit of background. Okay, this is not simply going to one company. Oh no, she has talked or he has talked to many, many, many different people. So, okay, a broad insight. So also spend some time on that. And then it is much more difficult to give the message. But you can give the message also with words. And then I would probably end in my qualitative papers, then I probably end with something like propositions or further research, a hypothesis for testing. So okay, what are the main things, and formulate it in something like that people can follow that. Okay, that people could give feedback on that, like hypothesis, but then at the end of your paper. Okay, this is making sense. Okay, I will help you. How would you investigate that? Maybe you can do this, or maybe you can do that. Or that proposition, from my background, that is really difficult to understand. And that's something that you could end with. Yeah. Okay, more questions? Yes?
You suggested to end with the slide that you would like feedback on. And would you also suggest to ask a specific question about that to the audience? Or just
could be. Yeah, could be. Also, something that I forgot to mention, if it is your first presentation, be honest on that. Give that as a first sentence. Okay, today I'm a bit nervous, because it's my first presentation ever on a conference. Or this is my first presentation of my first paper of the PhD. And okay, everybody knows you are setting the scene. Okay, first year students, I will give feedback so that person can be helped. So I mean, it's setting the scene. If you have a particular question, you could ask that. Okay, thank you for your presentation, or thank you for listening to me. You know, when I prepared my presentation, I thought maybe it would be interesting to have feedback on this one. So if you could help me with this one, I would be really glad. Thank you for that. Be honest on that. Sure, absolutely. Yeah. We are all going to conferences for helping other people, making sure that, I mean, the science is going to the next step, the next level. That's what we all want to do. Okay? Right? More things? More questions? More suggestions? We can talk about it later on. And then, presentation done, I'm happy. The rest of the day, I'm going off. I'm going to the city, you know. I'm going to maybe to the swimming pool of the hotel. I'm relaxing. What do you think? Good idea? No, not at all. You're staying in every session of the conference. Absolutely. Try to understand what the other people are saying and try to have a chat during the coffee break. What helps? Somebody is standing there alone, is like, yes, I don't know anybody. Well, join that person. Hello, I'm Patricia, I'm from Ghent University. Did you enjoy the conference so far? Okay, interesting. And when did you arrive? Where are you from? I'm from Ghent University, a very nice city in Belgium. And you start talking to each other. And maybe that person is a PhD student of a professor where you have read a paper of. Maybe or maybe not, but it doesn't matter. You were talking, and it's not only about what you are receiving as information, but it is also about what you are giving as information. Because by talking about my research to a person that I don't know, this is helping me to structure. Okay, what should I tell that the other person knows what it is all about? Because I don't understand. I don't understand. And then, okay, what do you mean this or do you mean that? Or maybe that is linked to what I'm doing, or maybe it's not working, the conversation. Okay, I will let you. Nice meeting to you, or it was nice to meet you. I'm now going to the bathroom, or I'm going to drink something. Never say I'm going home, because it's not correct. Never say that. Say that, okay, I will network further, I will let you go. Maybe you have to talk to somebody else. I mean, that's no point, no big deal. So don't worry about it. If a person are like standing with 3 or 5, it's like a conversation 2 by 2. If you are here with 3, well, maybe one of you is like, I'm not following. Well, then maybe I will join this group here of 3, and maybe then I will focus to you. How are you today? Yes. Where are you from? Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah. And I'm also always showing my name tag. So if this is here, my name tag, okay, I'm Patricia Everaert from Ghent University, you know? And also the other way around. Where are you from? Okay, I want to see that, because hearing, that's not enough for me. I never remember something when I hear it only. My husband and my kids, they know that, so yeah, they show me. You have to be there on time. Okay, what else do we do in conferences? Conference dinner. I don't know where I want to sit. I have no idea. I'm here alone, you know? It happened to me many times. Well, maybe take a person to sit next to who is more or less your age. So do not overestimate yourself and jump into an audience of very famous professors. That will be it will probably not be a very nice evening for you. You will be nervous, so don't do that. Okay, go to a table that is looking more or less the same age, and PhD students or middle age or I don't know what students. It doesn't matter. And relax and try to enjoy, try to talk. And sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not. But anyway, you tried, so don't worry. It's an exercise for yourself to talk to somebody you don't know. It's no big deal, not at all. Sometimes it may help you that you are trying to connect to people, like during the conference. I see you at the coffee break. I will wait for you over there. Huh? For instance, that person where you give that feedback to, or maybe another person who was in your session and asked a question. Try to find that person in a coffee break and then go to that person and say, okay, thank you. I really appreciated your question. That was a good point. Have you done similar research? Okay, and then you can start talking. Yeah. If you are too shy to raise your hand in like a big audience, it's your first conference and you don't know if that is a valid question, okay, then you don't ask, no worries. But at the end, the session is finished, okay, then you go to the presenter and then you say, yeah, that was a nice paper. I had another question. Maybe I can see you in the coffee break to talk to you because, okay, yeah, okay, all right. Already a connection that you are making. So use all those tricks, but maybe I can listen to you. Maybe you have many other suggestions for me that I did not mention yet. What else could you do?
Bring your presentation cards, so you can also.
Yes.
I know that's already old-fashioned, but
Yeah. Why not? Why not? Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. We got the tip from some of the professors who visited us a few months ago. Maybe you can also add a picture to your card, your business card. People are remembering you. Yeah, sure. And then what else are you doing afterwards, after the conference? Oh, relax, going home, back to business.
writing emails to the contacts that you were most interested in.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Send nice notes to people who are giving you feedback. Absolutely. Try to keep, to keep in the loop. Absolutely, yeah, sure, yeah. Also try to remember those names because you may also mention that in the acknowledgement of your paper. I got feedback from this and this and this person, or I got feedback on the presentation of that paper at this particular conference. Okay, that's also showing, okay, that paper was already presented several times. So the editor is seeing that, not the reviewers, but the editor is seeing that. And the editor is the one who is deciding who is going to send this paper to. Yeah?
And also on your presentation cards, sometimes the opposite side is blank. So there you can write also what was the topic that you were interested in. So for example, the same thing, okay, the same thing that this person was, or entrepreneurship or whatever.
Exactly.
So after a while, you still can remember what it was about, because otherwise you end up with a bunch of presentation cards and you don't remember a thing.
Exactly. Yes. Or something like met at the dinner in Cardiff. So okay, that you will remember that later on. Absolutely. Yeah. Good point. What else? Yes?
I often wonder if it's a good idea to then add to people you saw in the conference on LinkedIn. Whether you can really add everyone you spoke to, or if you really had to have a longer talk in order to add them. I don't know if it makes sense.
I don't know. I mean, I'm really interested in their work.
So the question is about LinkedIn. Okay, why not add a personal note to it? I've met you at a conference, you gave a good feedback, here are my contact details, maybe we can connect. Lisa, what do you think about that? You are an expert on that, right?
I wouldn't say I am an expert, but I think it's nice also for the other person, even though you've met them for only like a minute, or even if you were just in the audience and this person really didn't speak to you, but you write to them, hey, I was at your presentation, it was very interesting, let's connect. If it were me, I would be very honored to receive that message, so I think you cannot do anything wrong with it.
Absolutely. If I'm not interested, I will not accept, don't worry.
Yeah, that's the worst thing.
The worst?
That's like the worst thing in the world.
I wouldn't say so. Don't worry, be happy. I mean, life is more than that. But I have to admit that my own very first conference that I was also very nervous. So I think that's normal, absolutely normal, absolutely normal. Yeah. For me it helps when I'm going to look up front to see how the room is looking, because then I'm already in that presentation mode. Okay, I will need to stand over there, so I will make sure that my stuff is here with me, or do I have to stay here, that my stuff is here with me? These are like things that I want to know up front, always in a conference, always, yeah.
And sometimes if you have time also to check the equipment, it's not always possible, but just to make sure that everything is, and you have time to solve any technical problem.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. All right. More questions? What was the main question about networking? Did I answer that correctly? How to connect with people, or?
I think that's the main issue people struggle with, to get a conversation started. Me personally, I like to network in pairs, for instance, to go together with a close colleague,
Yeah.
someone else, and then you can talk about your own research and you can also introduce the other person. It may also come across as intimidating, maybe, if
Yeah.
you go with two
Yeah.
persons.
Yeah. If you are going with some, maybe that's another interesting point to me. If you are going with colleagues to a conference, you are feeling much more comfortable because you are with the two of you, but make sure that you're not staying the whole time together, because then you will get less opportunities for having an open mind and to network. Yeah. When my colleague and I, we were going to a conference, we say, okay, we're going together, but okay, make sure that you're having a good time, and we'll see each other for going at home or whatever, or making sure that we should not walk alone in the middle of the night to the hotel or something like that. But I mean, for the rest of the evening, we are definitely staying separately from each other, definitely. I'm networking here, my colleague is networking there, the PhD student is networking there, the other PhD student is networking there. No. It's not a family gathering, you know? It's not we as a group, we are going out and we are staying with each other. Not at all, not at all. Don't do that, never do that. I know it's feeling much more comfortable, but I mean, that's not a good point. Yeah. You know, if you are counting how much it costs you for every minute that you are at a conference, the taxpayers are paying us for that, you know? So, expensive minutes. Okay, other things. It's always nice if something has happened, like your luggage was lost, or you missed a train, or you missed a plane, because that's every, you know, every conversation starts with that. I mean, so take that as an advantage, take that as, take it as an asset, let's say. Don't worry. Don't worry. It has happened several times to me, and then, okay, don't worry. Make a joke out of it and apologize for your clothes, your jeans, or whatever. Okay, my Japanese colleague, he's always bringing a gift from home. And that's his way, or saying, okay, I know you and I'm giving you something. So we as Belgium, chocolate country, if you have some chocolates, it has happened that I had some chocolates, spare chocolates, that I'm sharing that. Okay, why not? I mean, all small things, why not? Be yourself, I would say. All right, I mean, I will end the session here. It's 15 behind, so it's the end of the session. I wish you good luck be yourself, be authentic, and I'm sure you will all become very good researchers. Huh? Okay, thank you.